Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AsiaLink Business Lunch hosted by Cause. My name is Philip Catania. I'm the partner in charge of the Melbourne office of Cause Chambers Westgarth, and on behalf of my partners, I would like to welcome you very much to what will be a most interesting address from Australia's High Commissioner to India, Patrick Suckling.
As the Chief Executive Officer of AsiaLink Business, it gives me great pleasure to join Philip in welcoming all of you to today's event. I would like to specifically acknowledge and thank Cause and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for partnering with AsiaLink Business on this event. Thank you.
I think as a general maxim is India will never adjust to you. You have to adjust to India within reason. I mean, India is evolving, changing, modernising, so things are happening. It is globalising, and therefore it does need to be part of a global economy, global supply chain, and that is bringing certain pressures to it. But nevertheless, India has its own way of doing things, and they are very different, and you do need to get to know how to work in India. And it's like any market. And someone in Brisbane the other day said, you realise if you come to India, because he's considering a very big investment, you're going to have to go through some hoops and loops and some hurdles. He goes, look, I understand that. You have to tap dance wherever you go, even in Australia or even interstate. You've just got to know how to do it, when to do it, and with whom. And so we are now being seen through a prism by the Indian government and vice versa as strategically much more significant, and therefore across the spectrum becomes more important to do things together. And then that cascades into the economic part of the relationship, which is still the main load-bearing pillar of the relationship. And again, our interests are converging in this area in a way that they never have before. And while it's true to say that there's a long way to go with India in terms of where we are, we're doing about $15 billion of trade with India at the moment, two ways. With China, it's upwards of $150 billion, so you can see the room to grow even on that metric alone. But the economic relationship is becoming much stronger again because we're both seeing priorities in one another. So, for example, if you look at energy, India sees us as a long-term secure supplier of energy, as a place to start putting us into its risk management basket for energy imports. Energy security is enormously important for India. It's one of the things, if you look at its foreign policy from an interest-based perspective, as I was talking about, one of its more successful areas of foreign policy is pursuing, in a very, very coherent, strategic way, relationships with countries to assure its energy security way into the future. And we figure very strongly now in India's mindset in relation to that. So energy and resources is very fundamental and again highly strategic, and particularly from India's point of view. And so that's one area. The second area of major core strength, I think there are four that we've identified that we think we should work with India intensively on over the next few years. The second one is infrastructure. The Modi government says it needs to spend $1.3 trillion on infrastructure in the next few years, and they're building huge heavy rail transit corridors from connecting their major cities, and all the way along those transit corridors they want to stand up special economic zones, food parks, 100 cities. He wants to build 100 cities by 2050, which he says he wants to be smart cities, which is clean, green, connected, all of that sort of thing. And they want to completely overhaul their railway sector, which is why they've introduced 100% FDI into their railway sector, so fast trains as well as all of this heavy freight rail. And then also capital. India's capital constrained, as pretty much everybody is, and they increasingly seem to recognise and welcome and want foreign capital to come in and stand up their infrastructure. So Mr Modi, the Prime Minister, is putting an enormous focus on FDI. The other two major areas are agribusiness. He wants to completely transform, and again the budget had a lot more investment in the agricultural sector. He wants to transform again India's agricultural sector, which means another green revolution, and that's from farm to fork. So it's more productivity in the farms in terms of crops, in terms of herds, and then lastly there's skills and education. And just as an example, when our minister was there in January, he met with the Prime Minister and 13 ministers and about 40 CEOs, and every single one of them had skills on their priority list. Mr Modi says he wants to train 500 million people by 2022. and it's every skill you can think of. So if you look at the health sector, which is another area of enormous opportunity between our two countries, because their top-end health sector is just exploding. And as Modi said to our Parliament when he was here, he said in every area of national priority for India, Australia can be a major partner. And in those 4 areas that I've just outlined, I hope I've given you some sense of why that's the case.